What's up, y'all? It's Auntie Suge from the Clinical Cookout, and guess what? Season 2, your girl is coming back as a doctor. It's going to be Dr. Auntie Suge, okay? Spell it right. So when we come back for Season 2, just be ready because we're bringing you fun, food, because sometimes I forget to eat, but we're coming back with all of that, and we're going to get into this mental health because guess what? Our community needs it. In the meantime, enjoy our Flashback Fridays, y'all.
So y'all know I love TikTok. I find a lot of information on TikTok from all different types of people. And I ran across a video that talked about having several baby mothers versus several baby fathers. And the example that was brought up was Future and how he had 8 baby moms and, and versus women. This guy is, compared the women in his community, and that every time he comes across a woman that he comes across a woman with multiple kids, and he was like, why do I have to pay the price for something you gave up for free? And he thought that women are making terrible decisions by having by being like an 8th baby mom, instead of, looking at it the other way around, with, let's just say she only has one baby father versus his 8 baby mom. So when the girl that he was talking to on the podcast said, well, he said, who's at fault? And she said both of them. And he said, no, the woman's at fault because she chose to have basically be Future's 7th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th baby mom. So I thought that was an interesting topic to talk about. So I want to know what you guys think.
The math ain't mathing is what I think.
It's never math, but he said, and there were a bunch of men, just to put that out there was a bunch of men who were agreeing that women never take accountability and that it was worse that they had a baby with Future versus him having 8 baby moms.
So he don't have to take accountability for having 8 baby moms? Like he has no accountability here at all.
I say,
according to that guy.
Okay. If everybody takes accountability for themselves, including Future, if Future would have came my way, not saying he would have, but if he would have ever came my way and I was somebody that he wanted to choose, the minute I was like, well, okay, you got kids? And he was like, yeah, I got 8 or however many, 12, whatever.
I know.
And like, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, how many, you was married? Because that's my next question, right? My follow-up is, were you married? And then he's like, nah, I got, no. And I'm going to be like, well, how many baby mamas you got? How many baby mamas he got?
8.
So the minute he would have said, I got 8 baby mamas, it's ding ding. Like there's nothing we should be talking about. First of all, you a serial baby mama maker. That's number 1. Number 2, why you in so many, everybody gets no condom. Everybody gets loose booty. Nobody is special. And then like, yeah, no, I wouldn't have been looking that way either. So some of the responsibility is on the woman that was like, ooh, Future, I think I should be number 6, number 7, number 8. We do got to take some kind of responsibility for that.
I wholeheartedly agree. Accountability is absolutely necessary for the women for all the women after, I would say, baby mama number 2. Because I can see how somebody could have 2 baby mamas. I could see that. But you get to 3, 4, 5. I'm not about to be number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's not to say anything negative against those women, because I personally think men like Future in particular, it is something about them that draws women in. It is. It's just something. Yeah. So you can't say, oh, she was just pure stupid. I mean, he probably super charming. I mean, those be the types. Fuck boys be the types that be real charming and can draw you in. So I won't put it all on them, but still, once you hear, like, what goes through your mind once you hear, oh, I got 8 baby mamas? Like, what's the first thought that mentally goes through your mind as a woman? For me, it's like what you said, Auntie Suge. Oh, okay, no, because I'm not even thinking about being a baby mama. I'm more like, you went up in all 8 of them raw. I'm not about to be clap messing around with you with the clap and BD and everything else. No, sir. Being passed around monkeypox and everything. No, we're not doing that. So that's my, like, I don't want to catch nothing. And that's not to put a stigma on having any type of STD, because it's stigmatized enough, but you have to think these things. Like when somebody says that, what do you think?
You didn't even have to disclaim not wanting no STD. I don't want it. It's okay.
Right? Like I don't.
So yeah, I think I'm looking at it from a different perspective than y'all are, because I'm looking at it from the perspective of like how people develop interpersonal styles, attachment styles, like the way that they relate to people and connect to people. And that's developed earlier on, like in your childhood. It's modeled by your parents or your caregivers. Then it's modeled by your peers. And that's how you learn to interact with people and relate to people. So when I'm looking at Future's situation and him having 8 baby mamas, I'm wondering if there's somebody in his life who had 8 baby mamas that he, not 8, but had multiple baby mamas that he idolized and felt like this person got it together, like I want to be like him. And then naturally, maybe not intentionally, but naturally, he repeats that behavior and is trying to be like whoever that person was. And then from the woman's perspective, okay, yeah, he got 8 baby mamas, but he dope. He got money. He, and my mom always said I need to get me a man that can take care of me, that can make sure I don't ever want or need for nothing. So 8 baby mamas or not, that's what I was told by my mom. So I'm going with it. So for me, I don't know. I'm not seeing like fault here for the person, because I'm looking at like how your history and your childhood and all of that can influence the decisions that you make now.
True.
That was so professionally
That
well
beautiful.
put.
I'm sorry.
Well put. That put the mental health perspective right in the forefront. Wonderful job, Auntie.
But what about borderline?
Yeah.
Oh my
But fuck
God.
them.
Borderline.
Also, you see in patterns where you're a serial dater, you're a serial slipper upper. You can't be with one person, and then whenever you leave that person is the villain. And it's never nothing that you did. And so then you move on to the next relationship and then the next relationship. And then you're leaving a whole serial of babies with different women that are all going to have interpersonal relationship problems later on.
Yeah, but would you
True.
blame that on Future? Would you blame that, not Future, but would you blame that on the man if he was doing that and not intentionally? This is like his pattern of behavior that he's developed over the years. If ain't nobody ever told him, like, this ain't
He's
cool.
not self-aware. He's not cognizant of the problem.
Yeah.
I think it's more his ego, to be totally honest. I think he is aware. I just think men are mostly ego driven, and he can pull whatever chick he wants to. And if they choose to have, it is, I mean, you learn back in like middle school about health and protection and safety and having kids. Like, you learn all that stuff back when you were in high school. What he chooses to do after that, I mean, I feel like that's a conscious decision he made. Like, but I also believe that that's a conscious decision the woman made as well. But I don't think it should be more blame on one versus more blame on the other. Like in that TikTok, they were trying to blame it mostly on the woman at being at fault. No, like, 2 people make a baby, and he is just as responsible for making that child just as she is. At least that's how I personally see it. Now, I do agree that with Amber, there may be some interpersonal attachment things going on. I definitely probably agree with that. I mean, if we're all humans, all that is always going to be considered. But I always think that I feel like women have to take most of the blame, because holding a man accountable is just hard for other men to do. I don't know why. I don't ever see it happen a lot. And when we do hold men accountable, all I see is men saying, "Oh, you're simping. You're pandering to women." The moment men get held accountable for their irresponsibility.
Yeah.
Black women aren't going around here making broken homes on their own. They're
Exactly.
just not.
And then that's, I'm so glad you said that, Auntie Keish, because that is something that blows my mind too. Men will, I will hear men complain about a woman who has multiple children or multiple baby fathers, and then they literally actively participate in creating that same dynamic. So you complain about it. You don't want a woman with multiple baby fathers, but you then make a woman, that very woman you don't want, or you come from a woman that is that same woman. Your mama had multiple baby fathers. So you're disparaging these women as if there's something flawed, when you're a part of you're flawed too. You're a part of the flaw. It doesn't make sense. Right. And men struggle to hold one another accountable, but then too, they believe women struggle to hold one another accountable. They believe
everybody
Everybody
Everybody struggles to hold themselves and other people accountable. Because if we think about it, men and women are leaving a trail of kids with different baby fathers and growing up in different households, and there's a lot of problems that come with having multiple sets of parents. And there's nothing wrong with, everybody can't make everything work, and so sometimes you're going to have situations where there's multiple sets of parents. But when you're leaving behind a whole bunch of children, 4 or 5 baby fathers, the dynamics do change. Some people think, well, that child is loved more than me, and then that creates some issues within themselves. And then they think, oh, well, that my father, left me and had another family with this person, when in reality the relationship with their mother just didn't work. And so you have those dynamics, but at the same time, I think being cognizant and holding yourself accountable will stop some of this and stop the breakdown of the Black family structure.
Well, it depends. I mean, because you got, now Future was one example, but then we have a whole nother example in Nick Cannon, who is purposely doing this.
Don't get so started on Nick Cannon, please, boys.
Please don't get
Sugar. Nick the Dick Cannon. All right, so
His name is Nick Cannon.
but he's purposely doing it. But there is so much that can be tied to mental health with Nick Cannon's choice, because he has said in so many words, Nick Cannon has lupus. So he has a medical issue that he lives with, and he wants to leave a legacy. But in leaving your legacy, in the selfishness of that, I want to leave a legacy, you are also creating all of these different family dynamics and all of these issues. And a lot of people will argue, well, his kids won't have issues because he's rich and he can get to them whenever he needs to. Getting to them whenever you need to doesn't mean that you're there when they need you. Having the money doesn't mean that you are an active parent. It means that you can pay bills. That's not the same thing.
Right. And it's impossible to be there for... I'm sorry, go ahead, Keish. You know I can talk all day about this.
No, I was just gonna say, I think that this is where people, I'm going to assume mostly men don't understand that there's an emotional component that children need in order to develop appropriately and healthy. And so you can have all the money in the world. If you are not emotionally available for your children, it opens up a whole nother can of worms. Yeah, you can pay for them to do stuff, but there's a whole nother component to raising children. And that, again, is pushed on women to do. And I've seen a whole bunch of comments that talk about, well, just like Auntie Ashley said, oh, well, he has money. He can have money. But if your father is not emotionally available, then how are you raising a...
But how do we know
child?
He's not emotionally available? You don't have to be physically present to be emotionally available.
You're right. I'm not asking about physically present. I'm just saying emotionally available. Everybody is throwing out financial, but nobody is talking about the emotional development of a child. Nobody talks about that. Everybody's only throwing out financial. And so I just believe you have to be able to have that component too. I hope he's doing that. I pray he's doing that, but I don't know. That's just people just throwing financial.
Well, also, you get emotionally unintelligent women that these men have babies with. You get emotionally unintelligent women that say, you know what, if he's not going to be with me, then I don't want my kids with those other kids. Or, siblings don't get to meet their other siblings because the woman is mad. Oh, he wasn't with me. I'm not about to have him around all them other kids. He's not going to be calling somebody mommy. He's not going to bring my kids McDonald's. Oh, he's not going to be allowed to be around them kids. And so when you have the dynamic of multiples, you start bringing in multiple personalities. And then when you do that and you have these multiple children, these children are learning to develop interpersonally, like Amber said, from their parents. And so if you are out there and you're not emotionally available, but you're financially available, then you might as well not even be available, because finances is not all it takes to make a baby. And it's not all it takes to raise an emotionally intelligent human being. And so when you get kids that are left with the mothers by themselves, and the moms may have some issues, or the fathers may have some issues, or the parents have issues and they can't effectively co-parent, you messing people up.
Well, is there an undertone here that I'm misreading that's saying that?
I think what Amber is saying is...
Wait, hold on. She didn't get to finish.
Go
ahead.
No, because I think what she was saying was, do you have to physically be there to be emotionally available? Like, because we saying Nick can't physically be in all of these places at one time, but does he have to be? Can he be emotionally available to these kids without physically being there?
Yes, depending on the age of the kids. Because if you got a 2-year-old, they on the phone. They don't want to talk on the phone. They don't want to see you on FaceTime. They're on FaceTime, and then they want to go watch Cocomelon. So they're not able to feel you holding them, you hugging them, you kissing them, loving on them, being there. They're not able to see a relationship or like effective relationship parenting with the mother. Like there's a lot of things missing in that dynamic.
Right.
And that's not to say I'm not demonizing anybody, because guess what? There's a lot of us, and I'm of one of the baby mothers from my father, and he knows this. So what's understood don't need to be explained.
Well,
but
hey, Keisha. Oh,
but you know what? That was on point right there, because I come from one of those families, and there are issues. It's not all peaches and cream.
Yeah.
Also, what I was gonna say too is that, like, I'm feeling like there's, and I could be misreading what's happening here, but I feel like there's this undertone that children cannot be healthy emotionally in a single parent home. Like, even if their father is there financially and the mom is there emotionally, like, are we saying that child can't develop?
Oh, absolutely
in a
not.
Way with just that one parent?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear, because I was getting, like, as y'all were talking, I was getting that feeling. It was making me uncomfortable, because I'm like, kids can grow up healthy with one parent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did. Society would have two, but you can. So that's what I'm saying, is that he can be emotionally present every now and then. I mean, you don't want, if you have multiple kids, you don't want to be just like in and out whenever, where you're in sometimes and then you're on and you don't see that or talk to that kid for months at a time, and then, oh, Daddy's here, pops up, because then that causes issues later. But if he's talking to them on a regular and mom is providing most of that emotional support, I don't see anything wrong with that.
I've seen it done successfully.
Yeah.
I see it done successfully, but that's for fathers who are actually, like you say, emotionally present with the mother. They do effective co-parenting. What we were talking about was people who don't effectively co-parent, because in those dynamics, somebody out of one of 8, somebody ain't gonna be effectively co-parenting.
Right. And I mean, I'm an example. Like, I was raised in a single parent home. My mother was the one who provided that emotional a part of things, that attachment that I needed. And I had she had a whole tribe. Back then it takes a village. So I had my grandmother, my uncles, I had a lot of people to pour into me. So it can be successful. But even with that, there has always been a void, because my father wasn't there as much. So you can't, I don't care how good the situation looks and how well that child turns out, something will be missing if they know that their father was not always present and wasn't there for all the important things. And that's not to say that every parent can always be there either, but when you missing out on
or a mother,
I literally remember the one dance recital my dad showed up to, because that's the one he showed up to. So that's the one that I hold in my memories. So you're still, you can have success just like you can raise a child horribly in a 2-parent home. It's 2-parent homes that are toxic and detrimental to kids. So for people who say, you married, then it's a good and all, it's some 2-parent homes that don't need to be 2-parent homes. They need to co-parent and separate. But it can happen, but we're just saying, if we go based off of what typically happens, especially with this conversation that Keish pulled from TikTok, this alone is detrimental to those kids. Some of Future's kids are old enough to know what's going on and to hear things on social media. So this is detrimental for them to hear. What would it be like for that child of one of those 8 baby mamas to hear, oh, your mama was the irresponsible one, but your dad did, like, that was cool. He was cool. It ain't his fault. Blame your mother. You are setting people up for mental problems.
I get what you're saying, and I partially agree, but I also partially disagree, because I feel like a lot of the time we make this assumption that kids are going to respond to something a certain way because of how we view things, and we think, oh, if this kid hears this about their dad or their mom, oh my gosh, they're going to be so sad. But we're not looking at the individual differences for people too. So yeah, actually, you might have always had that void and like wanted your dad to be there, or at least wanted him to be there for the important things and wondering why he wasn't there. But then you have another kid or an adult who was just like, so what? It doesn't matter to me. That's the individual differences. So it's not, so Future's kids, they're not, every single one of them are not going to have a negative experience with hearing these things about their dad or their mom. Maybe one out of the bunch or two out of the bunch, but it's not going to be every kid. It's just, it's the generalizations for me that like there will always be this, or every kid is going to respond to this thing this way, and that's not what happened.
That's true. And you know what you're talking about, Amber? You're talking about people who do it very well. People who do co-parenting, or they just raise their child very well. Because I've also seen some situations where the parents splitting up, they were better parents because, okay, if I'm not with your mom, I have to spend 100% of my time with you instead of me being in the house with you and your mom being in the other room and I'm just on my computer or I'm doing something else and your mom is taking up most of the slack. So sometimes when parents split, then mom or dad is 100%, they got to be in it. And I've heard from a man that made him a better parent, is because he had to be more accountable and he had to be more physically present and more and there. And so I don't only blame the man. Whenever I say something, it's always enough to go around.
Okay.
I tend to see it as just if we want to tie it also back to the video and look at Black families in particular, I tend to look at where our children are and how they suffer and what those numbers say. I tend to look at who's taking on more of the weight, who has always taken on more of the weight, and apply it from there. And from what I see from these conversations coming from Black individuals, man or woman or whoever, however they identify, our children are being left behind. Our children are being the ones that are being out there having to figure out their life traumas because we couldn't, as adults, hold ourselves accountable. And so if we're going to be, in my opinion, equal and looking at who's to blame, it needs to be both of them, period. Stop going out there making children you can't take care of. Emotionally, financially, spiritually, whatever. Mentally, if you cannot take care of these children, please be responsible. I'm not saying you can't have sex. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is just be responsible. Just think about those children that are coming into the world. If y'all can't work out, okay, yes, we know things don't work out. But I don't think that the blame should be, oh, well, the mom should only take the, if she's there, she should take all the emotional. No, absolutely not. And that's just personally me. I don't give men the benefit of the doubt at all. If you made this child, you need to be 100% in with me on this child. We don't have to be together, but you need to put in efforts with this child that you made, period. That's just how
unless
I
it's
agree.
Toxic. Unless it can be toxic. Unless it's toxic for him to be around. Yeah. Then it's like, I don't even want to be here. I got this. My kid gonna be good.
Or toxic for the mother to be around too, because I think we'd be like, oh, mother. But I know some single fathers, and I know some fathers who hit so hard that I don't care how many baby mamas they got, they killing the game. I know
fathers. Whoop, whoop.
Yep. And I'm talking about single Black fathers.
Yep.
I know personally some of them who is like, don't worry about it, I got it. Because guess what? They might have found a raggedy woman in the mix and they're going to raise them kids themselves. And so, I mean, it's not necessarily always on the father.
It's not. Just like not every mother is just mother of the year. You have some toxic mothers out here. That's all to it. We don't like to acknowledge that because Black women already get so much thrown at us. But at the end of the day, if we're going to talk about accountability, it's some mothers out here who, especially mother-daughter relationships, is where it's. I have worked with Black clients in particular, and that mother-daughter dynamic is something else in certain situations. So you have some toxic mothers out here and mother-son. You got some mamas who think they man, and when they son get a woman, it's a whole issue. She can't even connect with that woman.
And out of this conversation, I swear we could probably pick like 4 or 5 different topics to make a whole segment. I mean, like a whole main dish out of. But we're gonna go ahead and get into our main dish because that was our hot sauce. I feel like the viewers are gonna have a lot to say about that because I can't wait to see what they got to say because
they're gonna eat me.
Some of us don't agree with certain things each of us said. We gonna have some people who disagree. That such is life. You don't have to agree with any of us. You got your own opinion. We have ours. But at the end,
I want to hear it. Let's
I
hear
want to hear
it.
it. I want to hear what people gotta say.